Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. Yesterday's Independence Day saw a total of 189 air raid warnings sounded across Ukraine, the highest daily total since the beginning of the Russian invasion. 58 towns were fired upon and Chaplino, a town in the Dnipropetrovsk region, was attacked twice. Missiles fell on the railway station and private homes. 25 people were killed and 31 people were injured. Two boys, 6 and 11 years old, were killed in the attack on Chaplino. Russian propaganda reports that the target was a military rail transport with 200 soldiers. Chaplino is our pain today. 5 people were burned in the car. An 11-year-old boy died. A Russian rocket ruined his home. We will hold the occupiers accountable for everything they have done and drive them out of our land. Russia's missile strike on a train station full of civilians in Ukraine fits a pattern of atrocities. We will continue, together with partners from around the world, to stand with Ukraine and seek accountability for Russian officials. Despite nearly 200 anti-aircraft alarms, there was no increased intensity of missile attacks yesterday. On the other hand, the activity of the Russian Air Force was much greater than usual. About 200 flights during the day were recorded. The enemy used mainly bombers and long-range missiles to attack Ukraine. Such a large number of alerts is due to the fact that, in addition to missile strikes, Russia has conducted many simulated flights. The planes took off, maneuvered in the air, simulated the launch of missiles. For safety reasons, air alerts were, of course, announced at that time. The citizens of Ukraine generally follow the instructions of the authorities and remain in shelters or cellars during the air alarms. Unfortunately, not every building has rooms where you can feel safe. As a result of 2 missile strikes, in Shepietovka, windows and doors were broken with a shock wave in private homes and in the school. 3 people, a woman and 2 children, were slightly injured. In the evening, the city was attacked with Smerch missiles. The port infrastructure was damaged. There were no casualties. While a residential area was shelled by S-300 missiles at night, the fire was extinguished. This morning, Slavyansk was shot at again. This time the missiles hit residential houses on Darwin Street. There were 3 powerful explosions. Fortunately, there were no casualties. In the southern regions of Ukraine, residents are not only concerned about the shelling and the fires they cause, but now an additional problem is sandstorms. This phenomenon may not be common, but it does happen. Air pollution is caused by the transport of dust and sand particles from the Caspian lowlands and other regions of Asia. Usually it takes about a week. You have to close windows and spend less time on the street. Russia maintains an increased military presence around the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, according to satellite images to intelligence. In addition, it deployed armoured personnel carriers within 60 metres of reactor number 5. I remain gravely concerned about the situation in and around the nuclear power plant in Zaporizhzhia. Any further escalation of the situation could lead to self-destruction. As a result of Russian shelling, forests began to burn in the vicinity of the power plant today, and the city of Enerhodar was cut off from water and electricity. Some of the biggest names in tennis joined the US Open in a special Tennis Plays for Peace exhibition event to raise both awareness and humanitarian aid for Ukraine yesterday, which was also Ukrainian Independence Day.
Among the heavy hitters helping to raise money were Rafael Nadal, Coco Gauff, John McEnroe, and world number 1 Iga Świątek, who hails from Ukraine's neighboring Poland.
I'm pretty happy that we are united and that, we as public persons and athletes are doing so much. For sure, the event that I did in Poland was a great experience for me. That was the first event that, gained so many attention in tennis in Poland. So I'm pretty happy that we raised so much money for kids in Ukraine, mostly because, their lives has changed. And it's right next to my country, so I was pretty emotional. And, pretty happy that I can use my sport that way and that we're doing this today. It's great.
Very tough couple of years in terms of pandemic, now with the war. So excited to be back. Of course, always a pleasure to play in New York and in front of probably the best crowd of the world.
I just want to say, for this event, we're all a fraternity, the tennis players. We're pulling for each other. Obviously, we all want peace, and hopefully this will do something towards helping the situation over in Ukraine. Thank you.
With the U.S. Open set to begin on Monday, the tournament-long Tennis Plays for Peace initiative launched on Wednesday with the friendly exhibition event at the Louis Armstrong Stadium. The event consisted of a total of 5 doubles matches, with the first team to 10 points taking the bragging rights. Tennis Plays for Peace, comprising all 7 of tennis's governing bodies, including the 4 Grand Slam events, has raised more than $1 million in humanitarian aid and expects to raise at least a further $2 million over the course of the U.S. Open.
Go ahead.
It's like pretty crazy to see a lot of people with the Ukrainian flag here. And if I could say very shortly is that I wish that one day finally the war is going to be done and every single person is going to live in a peace with love and just everything is going to be okay. Because there is nothing more to say.
Thank you, Dan.
Grape pickers in France were toiling under a blistering sun this week, earlier in the season than usual, as climate change forces the makers of champagne to change when they harvest and, possibly eventually, how they make the coveted bubbly. High temperatures and the worst drought on record have caused massive wildfires and led to restrictions on water usage across France. But they also boosted grape maturity. August harvest used to be a once-in-a-lifetime experience in Champagne, said Charles Philipponnat, president of the family-owned Philipponnat Champagne winery that produces several 100,000 bottles each year. No longer. It is one of the record early starts to the grape harvest, but we've had quite a few of them in recent years. In the last 12 years, we've had 7 or 8 early starts in August. Before, that was only very exceptional. We only had 2 or 3 in the history of Champagne, in the period that we've been measuring temperatures and noting harvest dates. One of the first steps to adaptation has been picking up grapes much earlier than in the past decades, and not just Champagne grapes. The harvesting season this year was about 2 weeks early in most large wine regions of France, and precocity was set to be a lasting trend, winemakers said.
Almost the earliest we've ever had. It's the starting date is similar to that of 2011. In much better conditions with much healthier grapes because of the dry conditions during the summer. Global warming is having an effect. It's quite clear now. And the starting date of our harvest is statistically quite significant. And not only for our grapes, but also in other vineyards and also, of course, with other agricultural produce.
The wines may become different and producers may have to adapt to other grape varieties or different cultivation methods, said Laurent Pinson, who produces Chablis wine in central eastern France. The drought this year certainly prevented the grapes from growing too large, so the grapes are not as fat and less filled with water. The ripening process was slower too, with the rise in sugar being less fast. The vines lacked a bit of vigour and couldn't go too far. But those are stresses that have a positive impact, so we're looking on the bright side. Producers across France are expecting this year's harvest to yield a good quality vintage when it makes its way to the market. A relief after frost and mildew fungus attacks ravaged vineyards in 2021, something the dry and hot weather helped to prevent this year. That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.